And we are live. So, welcome to our continuing coverage of Showtime's killer fucking horror series, Penny Dreadful. This is episode 3, entitled Resurrection. I am the American Werewolf, and with me here tonight, I've got the Agoraphobe. And as always, thank you for joining me here to do this and to talk a little Penny Dreadful. Welcome as always.
Cool. I love to talk. I love to talk about horror, and this involves it both. And the fact that it involves classic horror, old horror, like old Universal and Hammer horror, is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great. This is a great series. Before we kick it off, I wanted to offer my congratulations to you for passing 300 subs.
Cool, thank you, man.
Yeah, man, congratulations. That's awesome. I'm happy for you, man.
Thank you very very much. I will have my 2-year anniversary May the 4th. Which is weird, it's like May the 4th. That's when I that used to be like a Star Wars day. I don't know if it still is. And
I think it is, yeah.
And I didn't realize that when I started it, but it's been almost 2 years now. And the first year, I couldn't even hardly get to 100. But over the last several months, it's picked up a lot, man. My channel's really picking up. So
sometimes you find that stuff that works, and you get a rhythm going, and you keep making your content, and hopefully, you get where you want to go. I couldn't be happier for you, man. I mean, I don't know of anybody who's constantly putting out more content than you are. You're a real fan of the genre, and just a cool guy on top of that. So when I heard that you were, right at the verge, I was rooting for you. I mean, I'm already subbed. And then I think Eric had put something out there on Twitter for you. Which I, retweeted and things like that. And then, the word came that, you had passed 300. So good for you, man. Keep going.
Thank you. Oh hell yeah, man. I'll get as many as I can.
Indeed. Why the hell not?
Keep having fun.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's the most important thing.
My first year, I think that was the problem. My first year, I wasn't having as much fun. And I really didn't know a direction. I hadn't found my niche yet, but now I found some shit that I can. I am trying to revolutionize the watch along. I'm trying to turn it into a commentary and a discussion, and following the chat and discussing the movie. And I'm doing pretty good with it so far, man.
Good. I'm glad that I think if you're not enjoying it, it's going to come through. People are going to see that, and you're not going to want to do it.
Yeah.
Most importantly, if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to want to do it. So,
I got a new show that I'm starting Tuesday with Karen from Motion Chicks Films. I just did my second show with my 16-year-old son. So hell yeah, I'm having fun, man.
Good. All right. So without spilling the beans, tell me what you thought of this week's episode. Episode 3, Resurrection.
They just keep getting better, and once again, when it ended, at least 2 weeks in a row now, my fiance said, "Man, they're just not long enough," and she hates waiting that week. But I like it, and my son likes it because it builds up that anticipation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got some tension going. You got something working. It's quality programming. So there's not there. I noticed that in these 3 episodes, especially for the purposes of review, there's no dead spaces. There's no filler. Everything that's in there has a purpose. And I want to talk about something that almost didn't have any dialogue in it this week. But I thought served a purpose, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So we started out. Where did we leave off last week? we go out
The,
and we see that Mr. Proteus, um, is quickly catching on to what he needs to know to get along and to
he's
be
smart.
part of society. He's having conversations with Brona and Ethan. They're awkward conversations, but he's managing. He's
He,
kind. He's very expressive. Great
he's
performance.
he's even looking at cleavage.
Yeah, he was. He was checking out, Billy Piper's cleavage. Nothing wrong with that. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these hands come through the back of him, up through his chest, and just rip him apart. And
Yeah,
standing in his place is the original, more classic Frankenstein monster, not nearly as
the first son.
physically inconspicuous.
Right,
Clearly not afraid to get his hands bloody, not kind in the least.
right.
And he just rips Mr. Proteus physically in half down the middle with his bare hands. That's where we ended off last week. This week, we started off, and I entitled this in my notes, Young Frankenstein. We've got the young Victor Frankenstein developing a bit of what might be a healthy thing, but he's got these questions about death.
Right.
He sees the death of his dog, and it's kind of an ugly death. His
Right.
dog, it's sort of funny because he's walking along and he's thinking poetry out loud, and he's walking in this field of flowers, and then he just comes across his dead dog, who is just already starting to deteriorate. The eyes are gone and have been eaten by the maggots, and it's sort of this weird contrast of this this gentle sort of kid thinking about poetry coming upon a rotting corpse.
Yeah, poor Bradshaw, poor Victor, and then he seems to have a nice mom. She's very comforting, and poor Victor, man.
Yeah, it really his mother comes to him and she's very kind and she seems compassionate, and she's trying to talk him through, his questions like a good parent would. Obviously they're not the easiest questions. Parents don't have all the answers, contrary to what kids might believe.
Right.
And then out of the blue, as she's talking to him about death, she just coughs up these enormous gouts of blood because it turned, all over him because it turns out that she has consumption. And I guess it's one of those things, we talked about it last week, where it's just, it's just awful. And, it's one of those things, once you got it, it was just the death sentence. And it was an ugly thing to happen. And you see she's coughing the blood up all over him everywhere. And like all of his security is just lost.
Yeah, I like how they're talking about the consumption, which is basically tuberculosis, because we live in a time now where it's not like it was then, and shows don't talk about that disease very much. And this one so far is talking a lot about it, showing it's actually showing the big problem that it was back then.
And just how awful it was to have it.
It just hit, and she
Yeah.
spit that to the blame and fucking died.
Yeah, because there's no cure, because there's no antibiotics back then.
Right.
So to think of something simple that you could just like last summer, I don't know, I don't know if I mentioned this to you. I came down with Lyme's disease.
No,
And yeah. Well, one day I just felt bad. Like I went from feeling great, my usual self, to just, and I was like, something is really wrong. And I went to go get myself checked out, and they tested me for COVID, and they're like, well, you don't have COVID. And they're like, well, you might test positive tomorrow. It could be one of those things. But then the doctor is like, have you been bitten by a tick recently? And I had. And they're like, okay, we're going to take some blood. And it's one of those things where, if you never hear from us again, you're fine. But if we contact you, that means that, you have Lyme's. And sure enough, the next day, he's like, yeah, you got it. And
Yeah.
because they caught it so early, they're able to completely knock it out with a round of antibiotics.
Right.
So I had Lyme's and Rocky Mountain spotted fever that they just
Damn.
completely knocked out with like routine medications. Like I was sick on Friday. By Sunday, I was up and moving again. It was just unbelievable. But you know, that just goes to show how much we take for granted in terms of, you know, these medications, you know, these simple medications. And, you know, there's this poor woman who could today just be cured with a round of antibiotics. Go to your local Walgreens, go to your local, you know, CVS or whatever, you know, whatever your place is. But she's going to die this awful, horrible death in front of her son, who's just watching her, you know, cough up blood. And it's a horrible, horrible situation.
She seemed fine, and then just all of a sudden, you know what I mean? And then she was just having this fit. You know, I was like, what the hell? I was not expecting that. And then I was like, damn, poor Victor. His dog Bradshaw dies, and while his mom's comforting him over the loss of a little boy's dog, which is a big thing, a little boy's dog dying.
Yeah.
While he's getting comforted by his mom, she dies too. You know, it's like I was like, damn.
Yeah, it's the double whammy. And, you know, he comes out and says, you know, death is not serene like it is in the poetry books. You know, it's this awful, you know, sort of thing. And he desperately wants to, I think, prevent it.
Yeah, he breaks up the books.
Yeah, you can see he starts to bring these. He's a little kid, and he starts to get these huge medical books. You know, look like they weigh 20 pounds each. You know, and he starts cracking the books, and you can see where this obsession with life and death kind of start.
Makes sense, yes, because this is something that they never told about Victor. This is a place that they never went. We didn't know he had this much loss.
Yeah, in the book, in Shelley's book, I think it does begin with the violent, bloody death of his mother, who I think dies in childbirth. You know, much like his mother, much later in life, became pregnant again when he was practically an adult, and you know, she dies, and I think the baby dies. You know, and just, you know, it's just an awful thing that kind of cements Frankenstein's obsession with, you know, trying to bring people back from the dead. And from there, it shifts right into the next episode. And tell me what your impressions were of, and I guess we'll call him Caliban.
Right. Yeah. Because that's what the guy ends up naming him later. He at the end of the last one, he just seemed like a monster that didn't have much compassion. He just come off as pretty evil, you know, just this bastard, you know what I mean? And we find out that he's his first son, you know, he's basically like, hello, father. But then as he's talking to him, you're finding out that he had a real hard time too. His transition wasn't quite like you know, like
Proteus.
like Proteus's. It was a horrible when he woke up from it. He was screaming.
That scene is fucking awful.
Yes, and but as he was talking, you know, before they got into that, as he was talking, you come to find out he was a calm guy. You know what I mean? He wasn't this evil being that I expected him to be.
No, not exactly. But it's just, yeah, he's bitter and he's angry. And he just has this awful contempt, almost a hatred for mankind. You know, with all the things that he's seen. Yeah, pretty much from day one. I mean, it's just an awful, bloody kind of, rejection that he experiences pretty much from everybody.
Yeah.
And that opening scene. With, you know, his birth is just an awful thing to watch. He's just covered in blood and he's screaming, and you know, like Frankenstein is. You can see Frankenstein's point of view too. You know, you'd be like, "What the hell is?" Yeah, you know, what the hell is this? Yeah. You know, and it scares him so badly that he just completely abandons him
Yeah, I was
Um,
wondering what went differently. You know what I mean? It hasn't explained that yet, but I'm wondering what the hell went differently. Obviously, he learned from that, but in the process, he rejected him the first second that he was born,
yeah,
and yeah, and then he's all alone. So then he has to watch, and what he watches and what he sees from people is all bad, and then
yeah,
he begins to feel like the animal that these people are outside being mean to. You know what I mean? He just
yeah.
found them.
I
He
mean,
felt like a horse. You know?
yeah. I mean, he gets to see all those things because Frankenstein abandons him, so he's
Yep.
got this whole loft to himself. And he's just staring out the window and he's watching people, beat that one man. He's just beating that horse and
Yeah.
holding it down and whipping it. And, it's just, yeah, it's this awful thing, and he says, my first interaction with humanity was with you and it was rejection.
He
It,
didn't associate with people from day one. He didn't associate with people. He associated with the animals. That's the way he
yeah,
seen
he
himself.
associates with the animals and the people or, the things that are being mistreated.
Hmm.
That's what he identifies with.
Yeah.
But he also tells Frankenstein that, and I thought this was a great line, that they are the Janus mask, because what he's done all
Yeah.
that time living in the loft was he went through his piles and piles of books and the poetry and the literature, so he's like hyper intelligent.
Taught himself to
Where,
read.
yeah, he taught himself to read and not just read, but to read the classics.
Right.
So he has this, sort of impromptu education, you know, that he's gotten from all of his books, and just these awful experiences. Uh, yeah, I mean he's
I'm wondering if Frankenstein come up to see him at all or took care of him at all. You know what I mean? It didn't really say. I'm wondering if he fed him and did all that, or if he just had to go find it, or what.
I'm thinking that he was pretty much on his own. I don't think
Yeah.
that this man did much of anything for him.
Right.
Um, and so it sort of leaves you there. This was a shorter episode, about 40, a little over about 47 minutes,
Yeah.
and then with the credits, and then with the intro, and then with the recap. So a little over 40 minutes you got here, and then they sort of skip out of that and go back to Vanessa, and
Yeah.
Vanessa has a visit from
Mina.
Mina, who tells her that she is surrounded by all these, vampires.
Yeah.
She's scared. She's
Save me.
asking for help. And
Please
it's
save
just
me.
yeah, save me. It's just a quick scene, but it's powerful, and
Definitely.
it does something. It
We're
does something.
finding out. We're finding out that Vanessa, it wasn't just in that seance, that she actually has a gift. She can actually communicate. I'm not sure she knows exactly what to do with it yet. Without help, but she does have a gift.
Yeah, she's kind of like a medium,
Hmm.
or something along those lines. And as we will proceed in the series, we'll find out a little bit more and more. And that's the one thing this series does. It sort of jumps between the past and the present.
Right.
So
Well,
you know how
it
some,
kind of has
they
to.
show you the whole past and then they come up with this progression. This doesn't do that. I mean, clearly we're here in the present, but then as we go along, we begin to get more and more backstory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of had to, especially with the Caliban, like that. That's why he killed Proteus. That's one point I wanted to make. Um, he seen how nice Victor was with Proteus, and how he almost loved him. How he's walking around with him because he began to follow him, and he was seeing what they were doing, and I think he just killed him out of total jealousy.
I
Because
think that's absolutely correct. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, he claimed that it
but
was
then
mercy, but it was just rage and envy.
how dare you love on this guy and all you did is just leave me all alone like some animal? Yeah,
Yeah. 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 And there's a point to that. But the Frankenstein monster as it's represented here, or the Frankenstein story itself is complex. You know,
It is.
he doesn't ask to be made.
Right.
You know, and the way that he's designed, and with the scarring, and everything, like he's not fit to move. And like Frankenstein didn't consider any of these things as he was just sewing pieces together. He's sort of thinking of himself. And that's the great irony. Once this thing comes to life, he instantly realizes what he's done, but it's too late.
Yeah. So instead of trying to do something about it, he pretty much tucks his tail, runs,
Yeah, he
and
runs.
leaves him all alone rather than facing it and trying to do something for him, trying to do something with this creation that he created. He didn't choose to be there, like you said. He's there because Victor made him be there, and then he just left him completely alone because he was too much of a coward to help. Basically,
if you are looking for what I consider to be the most accurate adaptation as it relates to the Shelley story, get the one with Robert De Niro.
That's one I haven't seen. Okay.
Robert De Niro and Kenneth Branagh. The great Kenneth Branagh is Victor Frankenstein, and De Niro is the monster. This is a 2-pack here. The first one is Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I'm not really a fan of. But
really?
No, I don't like that movie. I don't like that movie.
Okay.
That's a whole other conversation
Right.
about that thing. But that version of Frankenstein is as close to the book as it gets. It's very close. It's very loyal. It's a faithful adaptation. So if you want to, if you don't want to read the book, but you want to see an accurate adaptation, that's the one to go with. It was made in the 90s, right around that time that they were making this Dracula, and when they did that Mary Riley movie.
Yeah.
Which was
Caliban brings up Shelley. Caliban actually brought up Shelley. So she's an actual, you know what I mean? Yeah, when he's talking to him and telling him.
Oh, yeah. Well, Shelley was also the husband of Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. Her husband was actually the more famous poet and writer. So they were a family. It's a good story.
That was cool. I thought that was cool when he brought up Shelley, because he was pretty much comparing this to that, and he was like, even in Shelley's worst story, you know what I mean? You couldn't have imagined, what I've been through.
Yeah, or he asked him, did you really think that I was going to find eternity in a daffodil?
Right.
With this life that I've lived, no wonder you ran. No wonder you ran. There's nothing for us to relate to each other on, when it comes to this. But he ends up, of all things, making a friend who picks him up out of the alley.
After he gets beat on, yeah.
Yeah, he bumps into some people, and he bumps into a woman, and so he gets jumped, and, he doesn't defend himself, and he just gets kicked. And then somehow this one man just stumbles upon him in the alley and befriends him. So, he ends up, also experiencing a little bit of kindness, a little humanity. He buys him dinner. He offers him a job. He's very sympathetic or empathetic. You can see the disfiguration. He doesn't care. He sort of writes it off as one of those industrial accidents because we're in the Industrial Revolution now. It's the 1890s. And, he's like, hey, I've got a place where you can, not be stared at, where these sorts of qualities or features or whatever can be, not just accepted, but celebrated. And of all places, it's the theater.
Where the hideous is not shunned, they're celebrated. Yes.
Yeah. And it's a hopeful scene. You don't see much of that happening to him. And, the next thing you know, he's working behind the stage. He works in this theater where they do, and I hate to use the term, but they're working on those cheap penny dreadfuls, the dime store sorts of horror stories and slashers and murders, and these sorts of things that just sort of, thrill the crowd for a couple of bucks. And, he's working the props and the all the things behind the pulleys and the levers behind the stage. He's not on the stage. But within a small little set of parameters, he finds a little bit of acceptance.
He's amazed by Vincent. One thing I wanted to kind of touch on, when they first come and they're standing in front of the theater. And,
oh yeah,
and Vincent's talking about with such passion about the theater, and he's just standing there smiling. He's just looking at him like he's just fascinated with Vincent because he never known anybody like that. He's kind, he's passionate. He is, you know what I mean? He's just positive.
He sees him recite, some of that Shakespeare.
He's like, oh,
yeah. And it's it's actually it takes him off guard. And so, for a limited amount of time, he finds, a little bit of happiness. And we'll get into that a little bit more because obviously he's, confronting Frankenstein. So
something happened. Yeah.
Yeah, something's happened. And, now he's here with Frankenstein. Hey, he's got Eric from What's Happening, Eric? And he's saying, evening, boys. Congratulations again, Gore. Yeah, man. Awesome.
Thank you, brother.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Making it to 300. I was going to put up some graphic with like a Gerard Butler from 300. That kind of thing. But I didn't have time because I just started watching the show late. But yeah, definitely cool.
That's such a good film too.
Yeah, I think we were talking about that. I had recently watched that one, and then I tried to watch the other one. And instantly I could tell it wasn't as good. One is not, it isn't directed by Snyder.
Right.
So that's a loss right there. And then the story is just not as good.
But Eva Green is fantastic.
Oh, Eva Green's always fantastic. Yeah. But even she couldn't live that one. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. But I literally had just watched one, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go right into the other one. And I'm like, oh, this isn't. It's not as good.
She's a natural bitch, boy.
Well, I just think she's so good that she can play almost anything.
She just, oh man, somehow in that 300 movie, she managed to be seductive, sexy, and make you hate her all at the same time. You know what I mean?
I don't recall that so much as I recall, and I didn't get through all the way through. I think I got right to the part where she's getting banged by Themistocles. But I just remember her.
You haven't seen the whole movie yet?
I saw it once before, and then I got up to the part where she's getting banged on the ship, and I'm just like, okay, this isn't as good. But I remember her backstory, how she basically got sold into, so I found it difficult to find any fault with her for hating Greeks.
Yeah.
And then, the messenger that Gerard Butler kicks into the cistern at the start of the first movie was like her father.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of get it now. So yeah, I didn't have that much of a beef.
That's like iconic scene when he kicks him in there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. That's a shame because he's the guy getting kicked. I guess he's not Gerard Butler. Not so good for the other guy. But
stupid. He goes there and talks shit and disrespects the queen, surrounded by, you know what I mean? That wasn't very wise. I mean, he had to know he wasn't going to put up with that, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, well, it's hubris. It's hubris. So we come into the only, I think, scene we have with Brona, and it's just her and Ethan having sex. But and this is what I meant about there not being any filler. Like you could just as easily say that. This is just a useless scene and they're having some gratuitous sex and, gratuitous sex scene and, whatever it is. But what I got out of this was that they're genuinely starting to care for each other.
He likes her a lot. Yeah. Because they start talking about how she's sick. She coughs, and he asked her about getting meds and she, she's like, I don't have the money for that. So then,
she's like, who's got time for that? She goes, there's eating to be done. I need money for food. I don't have money for, for these medications. Hold on. Eric says, Eva is one of the sadly only good things about the second Sin City movie. Okay. I never saw the second one.
No, me
okay. All right. And then we've
Cool.
got Sean, Blue Digital. Hey, what's
Hey,
happening?
John.
He's saying, hey, guys, one of the most overlooked and underrated shows from Showtime. Yeah, absolutely. Most Showtime shows get overshadowed by HBO.
Yeah.
It's a great shame, whether it was this or something like Californication, which I absolutely love with David Duchovny, or Weeds with Mary Louise Parker. I almost ordered another series the other day called Sleeper Cell. And there's just a ton of great Showtime series out there. Yeah, and they've just all been overshadowed by basically what HBO does. It's a shame. There was that other one.
That's why I hadn't seen it before. You know what I mean? That's probably why I hadn't. I had heard of it, but I really had no idea what it was.
It's just one of the best things going. One of the best
Yeah.
things going. They haven't come up with too many series that are as good as this, let alone better. And we'll continue, continue to see what you think of it, because again, that's part of the appeal, having you watch it for the first time.
There hasn't been a weak moment yet.
Yeah, not yet. He says the Caliban character is portrayed very well too. Yeah. The guy who plays Caliban does a very, very good job.
And he's a deep character. There's so much to him. You know what I mean? He's very complex. Where when you first see him and he rips up, when he rips Proteus in half, you don't think he's gonna be, but he ends up being really complex, really intelligent, and he's gotten past letting his bitterness rule him. He can actually communicate, and he's willing to lean back on the brutality if he has to, but he's able to get along, and I think that's due to Vincent.
That, and he has been extended a little bit of kindness, so he does know it exists.
Yeah, so
it's not a foreign concept to him.
There's the good in it.
Yeah,
you can feel it.
Yeah. So we get a little bit. We're skipping around this episode a little bit. You get little snippets here with the monster. A little snippet here with Mina. You get a little snippet there with Brona and Ethan. And then we come back to Ethan, who immediately after finding out that Brona needs money, walks into and says, look, I'll do whatever you want. I need money. I'll work for it, And there's old 007 himself saying, great, we're ready to go tonight. And I still can't get past that they cast Timothy Dalton in this.
He's got a serious, intense look about him. Even as an older guy, he's still really intense, man.
Yeah. And I don't know if he might be he's my third favorite Bond. Because my favorite Bond is Sean Connery.
My favorite is
Right? Is it Roger Moore? Okay, my second one is Daniel Craig.
But then my third,
Daniel Craig.
No, Roger Moore. He is just so freaking obnoxious, man.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, well, I think by the time they got to Roger Moore, they started to move into a little bit of campy stuff.
Yeah.
With the Jaws character and these sorts of things. But my third favorite is Timothy Dalton. Yeah. So I mean, he plays it. He plays it very dark.
He hasn't done as much as what he probably should have. Like, I don't know how long it had been since he'd done really solid in between Bond and Penny Dreadful. I don't remember seeing him much.
Well, now he's in the new Yellowstone series, 1923. He's the bad guy, playing opposite. He's playing opposite Harrison Ford.
That's interesting.
So Harrison Ford's the good guy. Timothy Dalton's the bad guy, and I mean it's a good show. So we come back and we get a little bit of background story from Eva Green about Mina. And I thought that this was great. It's just a quick 2 or 3 minute scene. Mina was married or engaged to somebody named Harker, but then she became involved with another man, and they don't know who the other man is. And, has fallen under this other man's influence. Now, we know, it's a vampire.
Right.
And in the canon, it's Dracula. Right. But here, they don't know anything about who it is. So it's more to be revealed later.
Right.
and it's just a great piece of exposition that they just spend 2 minutes on. Who is Mina? Because he just asks, like, who is Mina? Like, why are you, why
Yeah,
are we doing all this? And you get to
yeah.
explain, why these things are happening.
Going through all this, paying me all this money. What the hell? Yeah.
Yeah, and it just blips back, and then all of a sudden we're back with, Caliban and Frankenstein, and we find out what Caliban actually wants
What
is.
What do you want? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was real funny. Of course, as in every Frankenstein, he wants a mate. As in every classic
Right.
Frankenstein story, and here they call him Caliban, based on the Shakespearean story. He wants a mate, and he's like, "What is the other thing?" People need food, they need shelter, they need warmth.
Well,
What's the other thing that's like Frankenstein is so disconnected like he doesn't even know it. Like he can't put it together. And he's
yeah.
like, love? He said,
Because
yes.
I don't think Victor even sees him as a person.
Well,
Victor never thought for 1 second, hey, this guy might have some feelings too.
well, I
He might
also
want
think
love too.
that, and I also think Victor spends all his time cutting up cadavers. He's not thinking about love.
Right.
So, like, he can't get it. He's like, what do you can see him look? He's like, what are you talking about? And he's love. And then the first thing out of his mouth, he's like, I don't love you.
Yeah. I am never going to love
I
you.
can love
Yeah.
you. He's like, not you, you idiot.
Not you, you demon. Yeah, not
Yeah.
you, demon.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. I just thought that was like, I think
Yeah.
it's an unintentionally funny line. But
Yeah.
what he ends up wanting is he wants him to build him another immortal
Yes.
woman. He wants an immortal woman, which is, exactly what the
Or yeah.
classic story,
Yep.
talks about.
You're gonna do that, or I'm gonna take away and destroy everything you love. So
Yeah. There's very much a threat. Um,
oh yeah.
you know, underneath all of that. And then the scene is done. And I mean, the episode is there's so much that happens in every episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and next thing you know, we're at the zoo. We're at the London Zoo where they believe that Mina actually is. And there's a scene where
Oh, that was
they get
interesting.
confronted by wolves.
Yeah, that fucked me up, man, because I was sitting there going, what the fuck? Did the wolf disrespect Ethan because, or is there something about Ethan?
Well, we see that Ethan, he's had a lot of experience in the Indian Wars. He's
Right.
coming from the American, Southwest. I don't know where wolves, habitate. I don't know much about wolves. But he
Right.
seems to know what to do to sort of make peace with these wolves so they don't have to start shooting and stabbing.
Right.
Um, and, then the wolves, just kind of run away. Oh, wait, hold on a second. But
Just gives him a
you
little
can
nibble.
Yeah, they're like he sticks. He
Yeah.
allows the wolf to put his mouth around his
Yeah.
hand. And I'm like, oh, there go his fingers.
That
You
would have
know,
been terrifying, man. I was there thinking, man, he's got a lot of balls because that wolf could have took his hand right the fuck off.
yeah, or at least those fingers.
Right.
This kind of thing. But they're wandering through the zoo, thinking that that's basically the end of it. And all of a sudden, they stumble upon this fucking creature out there just munching on some fucking monster. Munching on was it a monkey or
Monkey, yeah.
just munching on this. It's a vampire.
Yeah.
Just in the zoo, just chowing down on a fucking rat or a monkey or some sort of furry fucking thing. And so they just clobber it in the head and kidnap it. They kidnap a vampire.
Yeah, that's interesting how they can knock a vampire out. The vampires in this are so much different, just like the way he was eating that monkey. The one that dignified, he didn't take his fangs and put it in it. He was
Yeah,
munching on that motherfucker like an animal.
it's not fangs with drinking blood.
Yeah, he's eating that.
It's eating flesh and drinking blood like you're
Like
chewing
a
on a
zombie.
burger. And somehow that's just way more fucking gross.
Like yeah, like you picked up a rotisserie chicken or something like we would, or like picked up a corn on the cob and start tearing them up like her up.
Yeah, kind
Yeah,
of, sort of. And we get maybe one of my favorite scenes in this whole thing. Um, we've got, well, before we get to that, I mean, well, I guess we can skip around that. That's because it only takes 10 seconds. It takes about 2 seconds. We get to the character. Well, no. Yeah, we get to the character Fenton. And the vampire's name is Fenton. He gives up his name. They've got this thing chained down in their basement. And they're interrogating it. And it's actually, I mean, talk about that scene a little bit.
Just beating on him, you know. I mean, that was basically give me information or I keep beating on you, you know. And and even Victor shows up, and all Victor says is, "Oh, am I late to the party?" But Ethan doesn't care for that. He's a young guy, you know, and just feels that that's wrong and speaks up and pretty much stops him from doing it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, at some point they start interrogating this vampire, and like,
where is he? Bam!
Timothy Dalton pulls out a whip, and just this short-handled whip, and just starts whipping this poor thing, and you feel sorry for it because it's just screaming and you know, wailing like a little kid, and you know, you're just like, what the hell is going on? And it's just like this hellish kind of scene. They've got this vampire that they're torturing in their basement, and you're just like,
well, he makes a good
point. Talked about this last week, how, especially with the Timothy Dalton characters, like these are dark. Even the heroes are extremely dark people. They're dark characters.
That's what Sir Malcolm tells him. He said, "There's no good people here. We're all bad people."
Yeah. It's really fucking awful, and it comes to, you know, this situation where, you know, you're right. They end up having this conversation in the upstairs because the doctor does show up, and you know, they're talking about, you know, well, we got to run some experiments. You know, we're going to have to run some transfusions, and you know, the doctor's in on it, and you know,
that's you know,
Ethan is like really bent out of shape about this.
Yeah. So they pretty much tell him, hey, if you got a problem with this, turn around and leave and don't say a word and act like you was never even here. If you got a problem, if not, shut the fuck up, because this is how we roll.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they basically tell him. You know, Timothy Dalton like takes command for a second, because I think a lot of things he leaves to Eva Green. He leaves to you know, Vanessa. You know, you know, and by and large, her and, you know, Josh Hartnett have had a friendly, you know, rapport so far. But here it starts to get very bare boned, and she's like, you know, we've been all brutalized by loss.
To the point where, that's
she's
what we know.
Yeah, she's like, that's made us brutal in return. Yep, you know, and then Timothy Dalton steps up and ramps it up one more, and he's like, you know, this is not for the weak of the kind. Like, nobody in this room is kind, you know, and that's why you're all here.
Yep.
You know, so you can agree to join us. You know, you all swear to this now, and there's a perfect example of how unkind everybody is in just a second after they make this agreement. That just demonstrates exactly how, you know, how kind of bastardish, you know, they all are. I don't even think bastardish is a word, but they are all kind of bastards. When we find out that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just listening. Yeah, to the point to where to get something done, he was even willing to use her as bait. That's the whole point of what he wanted to do to begin with.
Yeah, they go to the zoo because he already knows from those conversations with Mr. Lyle that whoever kidnapped Mina really just wants Vanessa.
Yep.
He doesn't tell Vanessa that, and just sends them all out in the hopes that, you know, Vanessa is like the lure.
She didn't even react. She didn't even react like she was pissed or anything. She reacted like, all right, I get why you did that. It's like she accepted it right away. She wasn't even offended by it.
There's a backstory there. There's a backstory there, and we'll get into more of that later.
Cool. Cool.
But yeah, I mean, none of them are kind. None of them are decent people necessarily. They're all super brutal. And then a minute after they say that, they demonstrate it by showing that, this, British knight was willing to use this woman as bait for a bunch of vampires.
Right. That could have got her killed, or taken, and then they'd be looking for her and Mina.
Because all he cares about is his daughter.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Good point. He will do anything to anybody, even in his group, to accomplish it.
Yeah. And that's kind of where the episode ends. They all make a pact that they have each other's backs, and they're gonna, leave it at that. And, we'll just proceed from there. And that's kind of where the episode ends.
Yeah, well, you got that one last little part there with Fenton there chained up, where he senses his master, and then before the episode ends, they make it clear that, hey, the master is there, and he knows where Fenton is.
He's making some kind of contact.
Master, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, you're here. Or this guy. So he's made some sort of contact. With the master.
That was so Renfield. That was so much like the Renfield character in 1931 Dracula. That felt so much like it.
Yeah, I mean, he's
when Renfield was in the mental hospital.
Yeah.
He's looking out the window, and Dracula's talking to him. He's not saying nothing, but he's got that contact with him.
Yeah.
Fenton, that Fenton just kind of gave me the Renfield vibe right on that part.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got that, sort of, he's the servant.
Yeah.
He's talking about, when Timothy Dalton starts to question him, he's like, "Where's your master?" He's like, "He's standing right behind you."
He's everywhere. Yeah.
Can't you feel this? Can't you feel it? Aren't the hairs on the back of your neck standing up? He's right there. This kind of thing.
Can you not feel him?
Hey, we got Heroic Waffles here saying, "Hey, what's happening, man? Thanks for stopping in." But that's basically where the episode ends. And, again, tons of things happening within 40 minutes. All of it interesting, at least from my perspective. Can't wait for the next episode.
Yeah. My fiance was like, "Man, these episodes are so short." And then my son said, "Well, they're almost an hour." And my point is that's what tells you it's a good show. If an hour seems like 15, 20 minutes, then it's a good show. If an hour seems like 2 hours, it's not.
Exactly.
I
think we've hooked a big fish here.
Yeah.
So every week we get a chance to reel it in a little more, and go from there.
If you're constantly checking to see how long your show has got left, then it's obviously not a very good show. But if it ends and you're like, "Damn, that wasn't very long," and you look at it was like a 2-hour movie, and it just seemed like less than an hour. Yeah. That's good shit.
I should mention that this is obviously available on physical media. I could not recommend it more for a physical media purchase. This is a series that you will not just want to watch once. If you want to, you come back to it every, once a year, once every couple of years, it's, hey, I'm going to binge Penny Dreadful. I'm just going to binge it, and it's just fantastic. It's currently also streaming on Showtime. So if you've got Showtime, it's there. It's a Showtime original series. I have it. I own this, but I'm not watching it this way. I'm actually watching it on Paramount Plus, because with Paramount Plus, for $2 more, you can have Showtime. So it's like $11.99 a month, So I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll throw in $9.99 Paramount, $11.99 with Showtime. Okay, I'll watch Showtime. No problem. That
this series has got a couple of special editions as far as physical media goes too that I'm looking to get into.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do believe I came across that about 6 months ago. I was looking around through eBay and Mercari and everything, and I think I've seen a couple of really cool editions. So
Okay.
I'm gonna dig back into that. You know how I
Okay.
am.
Yeah. Now I don't mind collecting, but not in terms of collectibles.
Yeah. Oh,
If I could just
I'm
find, if
addicted.
I can find Blu-rays, if I can find DVDs, I'll take them. It doesn't have to be special editions. They don't have to be imports.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things. And
I'm an addict,
I'm good
man.
to leave it at that.
I am an addict. Hello, everybody. I'm Goraphobe, and I'm a physical media addict.
Hi, Gore. Thanks for sharing.
Right, right. I can't help it. I got bit by the bug long ago, and I haven't been able to kick it yet. It's exciting, man. It's just you know, it's the little things that keep. You know what I mean? It's and you come right down to it, they are little things compared to what's really important. But it's the
Oh
little
yeah,
things like having things like that that excite you. If they excite you that much, then that's what life's about.
yeah. I mean, you have to do what you enjoy in this life. You know.
As long as you're not using your rent money, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
all it
yeah,
takes.
yeah,
If you can afford to collect like this, or you can balance out your budget to where you can collect like this somewhat,
yeah.
then there's nothing wrong with it. But if
If
you know,
that's your thing, then that's your thing. For other people, it might be cars or
right,
whatever. It's not you're not smoking meth. You're not drinking yourself to death. You're not gambling your daughter's college tuition. That kind of shit. Yeah, just then fucking
when
do
you
it.
get older, there's just not as much to do. So every little thrill like that we grab onto as we get older. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
Younger people don't understand that because they still got so much. You know what I mean? Because they're still living so much. But us, we slowed down and we just need these little thrills.
I don't know, man. I haven't slowed down all that. I've slowed down from a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
the unhealthy things. I've slowed
right,
down from a
right.
lot of the unhealthy things, but yeah, I still like to mix it up a little bit every now and again. I'm
Yeah,
not there yet. If I am, I'm not admitting it to myself.
Money, we just calm down and slow down in general is what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah,
saying.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
not like we were when we were 25. You know what I mean?
No,
Not even close. And
no.
shit, just it's as exciting as it was. I mean, when you're 20, 25, everything is still so you know. But when you're 50, you've seen that for a long time. It just doesn't excite you. Certain things don't excite you as much as they used to.
The
So
list of things that are actually important shrinks quite a bit.
so if we
You
can
know.
get cool little toys like collectibles
Yeah,
or whatever,
yeah,
it's just it's
yeah.
just pure joy. It makes me glow.
So, is there anything in this episode that you wanted to address that we didn't cover?
No, not that we didn't cover. But I do have to say I really do like this Caliban character. You know what I mean? Even though I liked Proteus and at first I couldn't stand him because he ripped him in half, which was a nasty kill. That was a great kill. I do have to say that the set design is still top notch, man. It is
Yeah,
aces.
yeah,
And every character, whether even ones you don't like so much, they're interesting and they're well rounded.
yeah,
It's more than just I don't like him and I like them. There's good reasons why you feel both ways.
yeah. And the people that you like do things that you don't like.
Yeah. Our hero group is a group of fucking liars and thieves and fucking malpractice ass fucking crazy ass doctors and
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
even within the circle.
Yet we root for them.
But I mean, even within the circle, they're willing to sort of, like what he does,
Fuck each
to
other.
leave Vanessa for bait. Even within the circle,
Yeah.
there's a little uncertainty there.
It's a good thing that Ethan is street smart because he I don't know yet, but he seems like the kind of character that will definitely be watching. He'll have one eye open,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
especially
yeah.
when he's seen what they did to Vanessa. If Sir Malcolm would do that to Vanessa, what the hell would he do to me?
Well, I think that they're all going to have their eye on each other.
Yeah,
Nobody's turning their back on anybody else in this one.
no
Hold
honor
on a
among
second.
thieves. Yeah.
We got Mr. Dan and Horace saying, "What's up, guys? What's happening, Dan? Thanks for stopping
Mm-hmm.
in."
Yeah, no honor among thieves, basically.
Kind of, sort of. All right, plug something.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have a bunch of shit to plug. I made out my schedule for the rest of March. and into April 3rd, but I won't drag it out that long. I'll just kind of finish March a little bit.
Give me the next week.
Um,
This week
okay,
coming up.
tonight, of course, we did episode 3 of Penny Dreadful, which is awesome. Which was called Resurrection, and it makes sense why.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, I'm going to be doing the third movie in my 6-week straight Fulci watch along / commentary and discussion. I'm doing The Beyond. Tuesday will be the first episode of a show that I'm starting with Karen from Ocean Chicks Films, and it's called For the Horror of It, and it's a watch along and community chat, and it's just like we pick a movie, we play it, and then we talk to the chat, and just, you know what I mean. It's for the chat. I completely involve, all that. I have an idea, but I just can't put it into words. But it's called For the Horror of It instead of For the Hell of It. Play on words. Thursday night, I will be having the next episode with my son. I'm not sure. It's going to be one of the A24s, an art house type thing, and we're going to be redoing that. Saturday night, I will be with Sean and I think it's called JT's Horrors. I remembered, but anyway, we're gonna be doing Creep Show, and then I'll be back, and I'll be back here with you for episode 4 of Penny Dreadful next week.
Okay, all right.
I'll do I have like a whole other week, so I won't do that.
Okay, Sean says I'll be there. He'll be there for The Beyond.
Awesome. And then the week, and then next Monday after tomorrow, I'm doing Beyond. And then next week after that, I'm finishing off the Gates of Hell trio or trilogy with House of Cemetery.
Okay. All right. For busy. Us, for well, that is busy. Not me, not nearly as much. On Wednesday, this show will be covering another film, episode 163. We'll be looking at Neil Jordan's. We're going to be doing a late show starting at 10 p.m. Eastern. We'll be looking at Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, awesome. Good movie.
Yeah, that's a movie I know Eric's been looking forward to. We're going to have Rod. Rod's going to be back. We haven't had Rod on since Christmas, since we did It's a Wonderful Life. So he'll be back, and we're going to cover,
that is one of my favorite vampire movies, definitely.
It's fucking good. It's fucking good. It's a fantastic vampire movie. Very underrated. Very underrated. It gets a lot of bad flack, I think, from people who just, I don't know, just don't.
There's even more that love it, though, man. That's got a hell of a following, too. Even people that say that they don't like it, it's one of those things where they secretly do,
Maybe they do. I wouldn't know why. I mean, it's just a great fucking movie. It's got a great cast. Tom Cruise does a great fucking job. I get it in the sense that it's not a jump scare kind of vampire movie with kills and body count. I mean, it actually has a story. It's a fantastic story. Hold on a second. Sean says, "Does love seeing Keith collaborating with other subscribers and live streams?" Yeah, man, he's good to have on. He's good to have on.
Man. I've been doing it basically the whole 2 years. Let me see. I counted them up. I wrote them down one day a couple weeks ago. And I have collaborated with 25 different people.
Okay.
So not bad for a couple of years, huh?
No, not bad at all. Not bad at all. After Wednesday, on Thursday, Eric and I will be back for episode 4 of Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass. And every episode is named after a different book in the Bible. The first one was Genesis. Second one was Psalms. Third is Proverbs. We just covered that on Thursday. And then episode 4 is Lamentations. And it's only 7 episodes. So it's a limited series. We'll be in the second half of the series after that. Thursday was a fucking banger. And this one will be.
Flanagan's good, man. Flanagan's good.
Yeah, he is. He's real good. Very underrated, unfortunately. I don't know.
I don't think I've seen anything from him yet that I didn't like. No.
I liked Oculus. I remember catching on to him from Oculus.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, and that had Katie Sackhoff in a Mike Flanagan flick. And I'm like, oh shit, okay, yeah, some serious shit. Yeah, yeah, it's good. All right, that's it for us tonight. Check out the Gore's channel there on YouTube. I'll put the link in the description. And we'll be back next Sunday with episode 4 of Penny Dreadful. Until then, I guess we'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Later, Gators.